I don't think it's necessarily screen time so much as what is on the screen that can be
Mm.
problematic. That ship is turning a lot faster than stuff we've seen in the past. And so that's where it's just like having those conversations with like-minded parents, understanding how this stuff works underneath the hood to make better decisions. That's how we kind of, change norms.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to School of Love, where we want to help you create parent child relationships where you can talk about anything and also, especially, about sex. And today I'm here with Jim Festante. I hope I said your last name
You
right.
did. Thank you, Amelia.
Awesome. Yeah, Jim, I just got in contact with you through Andrew Love. And it seems like you do really awesome stuff checking out your website, but please introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah. Thank you. So I pivoted from a career in tech for about 30 years. I started back in 1996 making websites and then have kind of just been at various inflection points in tech with online video and streaming media. I worked at the Washington Post, Slate magazine, and I was covering tech, video games, making content for them, set up their YouTube channel. And then I moved into more video game focused marketing where I ran content and strategy for social channels for Microsoft, Xbox, Adobe, Meta. And then I have recently taken that information and brought it to parents because I feel like there is a lack of information about this stuff out there for parents to make good decisions. Like, I'm not anti-tech. I also don't want to tell anyone how to live their lives. We're all adults, and this is all very personal too. Like, it depends on your family, your kids. I kind of liken it to nutritional labels on food, where you can't really make good decisions about food unless you know what's in it, and you can't really make good decisions about tech unless you know what's underneath it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's such a good point. It's so individual with each family. Like some want to just have nothing to do with it, and then some recognize it as a great tool and want to dive in more. So, yeah, that's awesome. And
Yeah,
I
it's just hard because it's nuanced, right? Where it's just like I
mm,
wish I could give people, hard and fast answers. Like, I was teaching last night and somebody was like, "Well, how much screen time should I give my kid?" And I was like, "I don't have an answer for you, right? Like, it just depends on them, your family dynamics. Like, just try things out, see how they work and adjust accordingly." Really is kind of all you can do. Like, the only two things that I can say for sure are you have to have this information, right? You have to be educated about this stuff so that you can make those good decisions. And then the second thing is you have to talk to each other as parents. This is not something that we can do in isolation. It is very much a collective action issue.
mm,
So all of us, in addition to just like having support, really, so you don't feel like you're isolated and alone and dealing with these things by yourself. I mean, the amount of parents that come up to me after a workshop and say, "Oh, I thought I was the only one thinking about this stuff." And it's like, no, we're all thinking about this stuff. I just don't think we're having enough conversations with each other about it.
that's nice to hear you say. It's just refreshing to hear that because I think, yeah, a lot of us, feel like we're doing something wrong, like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
giving too much screen time or whatever. But it's nice just to hear, like, yeah, you have to try things out. And I agree, like, you just have to find what works for your family.
Hmm.
And and sometimes you recognize, okay, it feels like it's going overboard, but it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, right? It's just you tried it and you see that you need to change things.
Yeah,
So,
everybody thinks that they need to be perfect with this stuff, and it's like, no, you can't be perfect with it. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have to adjust. And I think when people feel like they have to be perfect about it, then they don't. You fall off the horse and then you don't want to get back on, as opposed to like, no, I misjudged something or I want to change my mind about something. And as a parent, like, that's okay. Like, when you have new information that makes you adjust how you parent, there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so which information do we need to know? Do we, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure we best take you offer courses or trainings
Yeah, like
online.
I do a lot of workshops. I work with individual families, with parent groups, with school groups, with, I mean, even young adults and kids. I do workshops with them too. And really, it's all kind of the same information, which is media literacy. So it's just understanding how these systems work, so that if you're going to continue doing them, that you are doing it in a way that is not allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. Like, for example, social media. Social media is very much a monolith, and what I mean by that is doesn't matter what app you're on, the underlying algorithm is the same thing, which is retention. So it
Hmm.
just wants to make sure that you stay on these platforms because that's how they make their money. They learn information about you from your interactions, and that's what they sell to advertisers, and that's how they make their money, which is why TikTok is free, Instagram is free, but it's like not really because they're using your information, your time. And so it's just like when you understand that, especially as a young person, it's easier to make better decisions. Like, for example, I have a friend who I work with. She's a therapist and her daughter is 16 and she's very outgoing and very social. And my friend kind of held back on Snapchat for obvious reasons. It's not a great platform. But her daughter was being left out of a lot of planning and social engagements because that's where all of her friends were. So, she gave her access to the app, but she had me come over and just talk with her about, things that she needs to be careful about and, issues of like sextortion, right? Or, where kids are able to take someone's face and make, put them naked in a situation that they weren't ever in. And, and when that happens to them and they don't have the conversations that they should with their parents, they feel like it's their fault and they're to blame when actually they're the victim. And so that can lead to a lot of anxiety, PTSD,
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes cases of suicide. So that's where it's just like we have to talk about this stuff, even if you don't fully understand it. Like, try Snapchat, see what it's like, read about it, right? There are so many resources out there for parents, fortunately, in a way that weren't there for the past, decade or so. We're also seeing, because of a lot of lawsuits and from whistleblowers within these companies, we're getting a lot of their internal studies that they've done that show how these sites are problematic for kids. And, so there is information out there as a parent to find.
Yeah, that sounds great. Like, I think uh, we would all love for our kids to be coached by you, ideally. But yeah, it seems like, I don't know if you've heard about Wired Human.
No.
No? Yeah. So they wrote this book, The Glass Between Us. Jason Frost, uh, if I'm not mistaking myself with his name. I did a podcast with him, and they're all about like really connecting with our kids and then becoming mentors for them
Yeah.
in their digital world.
Yes.
And yeah, so I really love that because it's like just doubling down on the connection that we want to have anyway with our children, and also recognizing that this world is just like this. Like, if you don't have an email address, you are like living in a cave.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
There
it's
is definitely.
sometimes,
Oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sometimes like that. Like you said, when you're missing out on a certain app, it does feel like that also for teenagers. Um, and so, yeah, it's just really about being a part of that world and helping our children navigate it.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I talk about this too with video games, where, video games, unlike social media, are not a monolith. They're a medium. It's like, trying to say like all books, all TV, all movies. Like, no, there's so many different kinds that to lump it
Mm,
all together under one category, you can't. And I don't think enough people understand that about video games, where, yeah, there are some that are very predatory and extraction and, extracting our kids' information again to sell, to, keep them online for microtransactions. And then there are games that are great and fun and you can play with them. And so that's what I recommend to parents too. I was, having a conversation with one parent who was like, well, I'm supposed to know what games they're playing. And it's like, well, do you know what TV they're watching, what movies they're watching, what music they're listening to? Yeah, that's part of the gig. You do have to understand that. I think it's harder for parents who don't play video games because it's foreign to them, as opposed to, we all watch TV, we all watch movies, so we understand what that is. But what I tell them is just play with your kids, have them show you around on the games that they're playing so that you can better understand, is this something that is good for them, or is it something that's taking advantage of them? And it's not like you have to, have a 3-hour gaming session with them. I mean, if you do, great. That might be a little bit too much time, but, just like hop in for like 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is. And because so much of a kid's culture is online or in the video game space, to dismiss it, you're just cutting off an entire avenue of connection and communication with your kids. And also, it's fun. You might, have a good time doing it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, my kids, I mean, we don't have too much video gaming, but they've been like, Mom, my motor skills, it's training them. And I mean, I don't know how much, like, I'd have to research that, but yeah, I really love what you're saying. Like, we just need to check it out and also know what they're seeing. And I totally
Yeah.
feel the same way, yeah, about movies. And like recently, we've been on going on flights. We're traveling the world as a family, and we spend a lot of time on in the airplane. And I actually really don't like just this freedom of the kids, like just watching all these movies for a super long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to control in the airplane. Um, but at least, I feel like, we need to catch up afterwards and be like, okay, so what kind of movies did you watch? Yeah, what was good and what was not so good? There's always this kind of time to catch up. Um, but ideally, like I like to have, one of us parents watching with them or just know what they're watching.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think, and the thing that makes it trickier for video games is whereas, movies are a one-way street, video games often aren't. And they're, online, which means they're open to chat, which means sometimes they're open to chatting with people that are not who they say they are. And there can be predators, they go where the kids are, and the kids are on platforms like Roblox. And
Yeah.
I don't think Roblox is a great platform. I think there are a lot of security issues with it. And also, the games tend to be more of those extraction games that are, it's just like an endless treadmill, and there's no save points. There's no, places to pause, rest, reflect. It is just, a constant thing that just, to me, feels more like work than play.
Huh.
And again, and then just like knowing that because it is something that is connected to the internet, as a parent, you have to be aware that they might talk to someone that they should not be talking to. They might give away personal information that they shouldn't be giving away because no one is teaching them that, right? So that's where it's like, it's really important to make sure that you're giving them that kind of an education, because otherwise, how are they supposed to know? It's not their fault.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to go even deeper into Roblox
Yeah,
because
please.
you know so much and it seems to be very popular.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And so, I mean, my husband and I, we just kind of scanned it really quick and we just felt like, ooh, like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Good
like if you,
response.
I mean, if you don't, I don't know, I don't remember if we signed in as a child or not. I think we didn't. So maybe it was throwing out things that are supposed to be adult appropriate. Um, and so we felt like, wow, this is just weird looking. We don't want our kids on this.
Hmm.
Um, but I know, like, I have friends that say, like, my kid just plays this, and, they just stay here, and they've never seen weird stuff. And we say, don't talk to strangers, and it's really clear. So, does that make it okay?
It makes it
Um,
better. I wouldn't say it makes it okay, because it also depends on the type of game that they're playing. And the thing with Roblox games, again, because they're free, is that the platform needs to keep them there. And so a lot of the games are this endless treadmill. There's no, like you think about like a Zelda, right? Or Super Mario, where it's like there are puzzles, there's storylines, there's character development. And I don't think I've seen a Roblox game that has those things. It's more about, again, like an endless treadmill of, they call them clicker games because it's just
Mm,
like people in a casino just like clicking on, a slot machine. And it has the same dopamine response because it's not about, like, dopamine is the chemical, not necessarily of I like it, but I want more and I'm anticipating. So it just kind of gives you a loop that just makes you stay on and keep playing and wanting to play, and it dysregulates your emotion. And so that's where I'm just like, that. And in addition to the fact that, Roblox is a platform, it's not a game. The games that are made they're called user generated content, UGC. And so people make them. And sometimes, like, a million games could be uploaded in a day. You cannot moderate that. It's just too
right,
much. And so when they say, oh, well, we have AI to help us moderate, well, AI doesn't understand nuance. AI doesn't understand anything really because
right.
it's not intelligent. Like, that's a big misnomer, right? It just recognizes patterns. Um,
Mm,
so when you have all of these games that are being uploaded by people saying like, yeah, it's safe for kids, and it might not be, um, sure, maybe some of them will get flagged. And then there are times where it was just like, the game that was being passed around in middle schools recently was called Escape from Epstein Island, which,
oh, okay.
I'm behind the sentiment by all means, escape Epstein Island, but I don't know if that's a game that kids should be playing, and get what is, oh, well, what's Epstein Island? And it's like, that's not appropriate content for a kid. And there's so many examples of that. So it's like, yeah, I do think what your friends are saying as far as maybe hopefully they're in the same room so they can
Mm,
overhear what's happening. They can see what's happening in these games. They're not like off in their rooms on a tablet. And if they know the game that their kid is playing, they have limits, right? Where it's just like, hey, we're only going to play for 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. And then they stick to that. Yeah, sure. There's no hard and fast rules about this stuff. It's just understanding what the mechanisms are so that you can make better decisions. And for them, if it's like, well, I know these things, I know that they're not talking to anybody online, I can see what they're playing, we have boundaries, great. That's fine too.
mm. Yeah, I mean, partly I feel like it's if the communication is good, like you said, like all those boxes are ticked, then it's also in some ways really good because, our kids, if they can learn to navigate that really
Yeah.
well, that's also a great tool, right? Also for their future when mom and dad aren't really behind
Yes.
their backs checking checking anymore.
Yeah, because
So,
like it's that idea of, we're not raising kids, we're raising adults. And if you're
mm,
just banning stuff left and right and you're like, not allowing them, it's the same as, a kid turns 16, we don't throw them the keys to a car and say good luck, right? We
yeah.
educate them. And also there are reasons why we don't let a 10-year-old drive a car versus a 16-year-old driving a car. So that's where it's just like you have to be aware of, is it age appropriate? And in the meantime, if it's not, educate them why. Give them the education, give them that media literacy so they can recognize, like you're saying, these kinds of patterns that they should be looking out for so that when they are older and they're off and they're making their own decisions, they're making good decisions.
Hmm. Yeah, so you mentioned like, okay, time boundaries, um, the setting, like it's great to be in a setting
Common
where
area. Yeah.
common area,
Hmm.
um, and just I think, yeah, communicating what is it that I'm playing.
Hmm.
Hopefully parents have like seen it before,
Yeah. You
just
should
to get
definitely
a
see
feel
it.
for it. Yeah. Yeah. Would you recommend parents like I honestly I don't some people say, like, use the app or platform for 1 week and then see if you wanna give it to your kids.
I
I
think that's
have
a great idea.
yeah, I haven't done that, like, for me, it's, like, too much
Listen,
time on
we're all busy and,
yeah,
especially like you have a baby, like it is hard to do this stuff. I think
yeah,
that is like, there's a book that came out recently by Jean Twenge, and it's called 10 Rules for Raising Kids in a High Tech World. And in
mm,
her foreword, she says like, we can't count on the game companies, the social media companies, like the tech companies to regulate this stuff for us because they're more concerned with making money than ours and our children's
mm,
safety. That's just a fact. So we do as parents have to step in and do that work on top of everything else that we're doing. And so even if it's just like, can you get in for like half an hour, 20 minutes? It doesn't have to be like the full week, like give yourself some grace, but like even just like researching it online, watching some gameplay, just so you understand on a basic level what this thing is. Because yeah, I mean, we're all very busy and we don't necessarily have a week to devote to something new that we're unfamiliar with. So that's where it's just like you kind of have to make concessions based on whatever it is that your schedule will allow.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's all
totally.
very nuanced. It's just like that's what makes it so hard. There's no like silver bullet answer. It's just such a nuanced conversation.
That's true. Yeah. But it's still possible, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's just give you guys, the listeners, a
Yeah,
big
no, I mean, honestly,
bundle of
Amelia,
hope.
like, yeah, no, like I tell people in my workshops, if I've left you with fear, I've not done my job. There are actionable steps you can take there. Another thing that is, I'm optimistic is when you see things like, you look back at car safety and how long it took to get seatbelts into cars and, airbags. And then you look at things like cigarettes and cigarette companies testifying in front of Congress in the 90s that nicotine isn't addictive. Like, okay. But that took a while to get that to change. But I think because we're seeing the immediate effects of unregulated um, access to the internet, I think that's the big problem, right? I don't think it's necessarily screen time so much as what is on the screen that can be
Mm,
problematic. But I think people are starting to realize what that is and how to understand it better. And so that ship is turning a lot faster than stuff we've seen in the past. And so that's where it's just like having those conversations with like-minded parents, understanding how this stuff works underneath the hood to make better decisions. That's how we kind of, change norms. And so while I am, for example, on board with things like banning kids from being on social media until they're at least 16, but if you're not teaching them the stuff that they need to understand in the meantime, so that when they are more cognitively ready to be on those platforms, well, then you've done nothing except delay an inevitability.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point because, yeah, I mean, whether you're sick, I mean, it kind of makes me think of some of us think, yeah, I'm an adult, so it's okay because, my brain is formed or something like this. And, so
Hmm.
I can be on these platforms. I know how to sort through the screen um, consummation, but still it's very addictive.
Oh yeah.
And
And purposefully so, right? Like they hire psychologists that figure out ways to keep people on. Like that's just none of this is scare tactics. You can go to, I think Jonathan Haidt put together a website of Meta's internal research. You can search it up. It's all of these internal studies that came to light during litigation, and they know what they're doing. So it's not like this tinfoil hat, like pearl clutching. No, it's like they're very aware of what they're doing, but they don't care because they're making money. And you can go see their
mm,
internal research that has come up again during discovery for the trials that they're having against these companies. And it's all there. So it's not like a conspiracy theory. Like, no, they understand the problems, but they genuinely are more concerned with making money.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. Would you say, I mean, so that's kind of makes us as parents, I don't know how many people might feel differently about that. I mean, if we can be on top of it, amazing, right? Like we can break like what they are trying to do. Would you say they are especially trying to get like adolescents or just anybody? Like, are they
It's
really
really
aiming
it's anybody. I mean, but
for
they
that?
do have studies about kids. They do have
Right.
studies about how this media affects kids, and so they know how incredibly bad it is for them. And
Wow.
again,
Okay.
there's just like, so when they say like, oh, we've released Instagram for teens. Okay, but have you changed how the algorithm works? And if you
Mm,
haven't, then you haven't done anything. You haven't really changed anything. Because the whole point is that it's serving content for retention, which means you're going to get served content that makes you angry, feel bad about yourself, vindicate your feelings, right? Of like, oh, I always knew this thing was true, even without being, without having evidence or data in front of you. We're more likely to believe posts that are, if I am supportive of a particular political party, and I'm served, content that says like they're doing great. It's like, yeah, I believe that, as opposed to like if I'm served something that's like, oh, they're problematic. Well, that's my tribe. And so I'm not, as likely to believe that. And then that's how we get into filter bubbles, echo chambers. And that's really problematic. We're seeing when you have people living in alternate realities than other people because they're only being fed certain information that is
Mm.
frictionless because that's what keeps them on these platforms.
Yeah, and I've seen that also with seniors, like,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
they are also very vulnerable. They don't know about this whole algorithm thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they just sometimes go down YouTube and watch maybe the video they were looking for, but then they'll like I've heard people talk about, I don't know, just interesting stuff, and I'm like, where did you hear that? And they're like, yeah, we saw this video, and yeah, it's just not easy because especially seniors without children, they don't always have someone to kind of bring them to reality. Like, yeah, not everything you see is true, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And
things like that.
you're used to news programs, television shows that all to some degree have moderation, right? There are standards and practices. There are no standards and practices for social media, right? Anyone can
Mm,
upload and say anything to these platforms in a way that you can't really do outside of, some news organizations that shall go unnamed. But on the
mm,
whole, like there are, there are journalistic standards to things. You can't like outright lie about things. You can't manipulate, but that is what that is what's missing from social media. And so, this all kind of started for me a few years ago. I do Big Brothers Big Sisters, and my little, when we met, was 11 and he's 14 now. He used to say some like really outrageous things. And I was just like, dude, where are you hearing that? Because it's very not true. And it was always
mm.
like YouTube. But to him, as a younger kid, it is like, oh, it's YouTube, right? It's this institution that I haven't known anything different. So why wouldn't I trust it?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, how do you navigate that if you hear that? Like,
Yeah, it's media
can you just
literacy. It's
can you
really,
just
it's
tell him?
truly, yeah, it's like it's understanding two things, which is the first thing is you need to get your emotions under control because our emotions often override our rational thinking, our intellect. And so once you're able to kind of take a breath and be like, okay, I'm recognizing what this post is making me feel. Then when I'm calm, I can look at it and say, okay, well, who is this person? What do they want from me? What are they trying to sell me? Do they present any data or cite any studies of whatever they're claiming, or is it just anecdotal stories and scary words, right? What are they even just like what are the tactics that they're using to influence me, of like cuts, fast edits, and like scary music? Like all of that is stuff to pay attention to, because then you're able to rationally figure out like, oh, this is just content that's clearly trying to get a rise out of me, clearly trying to scare me. Because this person, an influencer, they make money when they have eyeballs. So they might not even necessarily believe what they're saying. But when they say outrageous enough things and they get comments, they get people like mad at them and they get eyeballs, that equals money.
Yeah, that's good to hear and
It's a,
know
yeah.
about for sure.
And that's what I mean, where it's just like having that information and understanding it, it just allows you to navigate it better. Personally, if all of social media went away tomorrow, I would dance on its grave, but that's not going to happen, right? Like it's just not going to
No.
happen. And I don't think unless they face enough financial, uh, fines and,
Lawsuits or
lawsuits and everything, like they're not going to change what they're doing. So
mm,
until that happens, and I think it will happen, it's going to be a while, but I don't want to, in the meantime, like we still have to protect our kids that, don't have that, that kind of, safety that future generations of children hopefully will have. So that's why it's just really important to educate kids.
Yeah. So, yeah, one of my questions for you, you have already confirmed, was it really designed to be addictive?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
On your website, you talk about breaking the spell, but I feel like you kind of went into that, right? Like it's
Yeah.
knowing about all these things that you
Hmm.
mentioned that, the music, the message and
Yeah, what are my
um
feelings? Like even just your emotion about when you pick up the phone in the first place and open the app. Are you bored?
yes.
Are you angry? Are you, what is like clocking even that emotion is really important to understand, because then it's going to affect what you see online, So it really is just understanding emotionally what is this trying to accomplish, and then so I can think intellectually about where is this content from and who's putting it out and what are they leaving out, and all of those questions that I was just talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, like what we try to tell our kids and model as well is like we should know what we want to do before we pick up the device.
Hmm.
And stick to it. Like
Yeah.
I'm also trying
Yeah.
to tell like my 5-year-old, he loves to watch tutorials, to draw something on YouTube. And of course, all these really attractive little thumbnails are there. And so I try to explain to him, but I know this will have to be repeated because he's only
Yeah, of
5 and
course. Yeah.
we need reminders. So I'm like, yeah, they make it look like that. They want you to click on it. And
Uh-huh.
often, you have, like he can't read yet, right? So he really needs help to make sure that he's doing the right thing, clicking the right thing.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I want him to understand, like, yeah, they make it look like that. They want you to click on it, but often it's not even what you're looking for. Um,
And those are
yeah,
those are conversations that you can start with them early, right? Like a 5-year-old is not going to understand an algorithm, right? But they are going
right.
to understand the concept of, hey, the reason that these are appearing next to your video is because they know that you're going to be interested and they're going to try and get you to click on more because then you'll spend more time on YouTube than maybe you should. That's a concept a 5-year-old can understand. And so the fact that you're having those
Yeah,
conversations, you're setting up for being able to have like a more detailed conversation when it's age appropriate. So I think that's great.
yeah, nice. Yeah, because like I don't know, Um, I'm definitely guilty of spending more time on a screen than I planned. But
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like I've put into I fed my algorithm with what I want, which is, I want to be inspired and I want, content to help parents about educating their kids online, and so that's what I get back. So definitely still need time limits, but I do feel like, some people are genuinely making content too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
and
absolutely. That's
so,
and that's what makes it so hard, right? Where it's just like, yeah, like YouTube,
mm,
for example. I've learned so many things from YouTube, and I think it's such an amazing resource. But then again, anyone can upload anything.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we're learning, right? We're learning the balance, walking
Yeah. Yeah,
the
because it's
tightrope.
not going
Yeah.
away, right? Like it's ridiculous to think that we can ban our way out of this stuff. Like no, it's not going to happen. So the best we can do is educate ourselves so we make better decisions. Right? Like I'm not saying
Yes.
like with the food metaphor, right? It's not like don't eat Cheetos. It's maybe don't eat Cheetos for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Like have it as a snack. Like understand that it's empty calories, but it tastes good. So like great, like enjoy it, but understand what it is. That's really where I'm trying to come from with this stuff.
Yes. I think a lot of us are really grateful to hear that because some of us like Cheetos, right? And
Yeah,
in
and that's okay.
moderation,
Yes.
with moderation, it's okay.
Yeah,
Whereas, like, some of us are strong enough to ban things from our lives, and sometimes we know it's just the best way, right? Because
totally.
if
But
if
like
some,
addictive personalities, right? So it's like
mm,
over the past like year or so, or I guess it's been more than that now, but my wife and I one day were just like, we don't want to drink anymore. And so we don't drink alcohol anymore, except for like certain occasions, maybe like, but it's very, very rare. But we're able to do that. Whereas there are people that can't do that, right? There are people that have genuine addiction issues because their brain chemistry is different than mine. So for them, like they can't
mm,
drink at all. right? So like it is very personal. And then there are some people that are just like, yeah, I'm fine with maybe having a few drinks a week, and it's like that's how I it's not impairing my life in any noticeable difficult way. Like, yeah, it's poison, right? Alcohol is there's no benefit to you other than like, yeah, when you're a little drunk, you feel a little good, right? But you're drinking poison. But like again, it's like if you understand that and you make that decision and that's fine. Like we're all adults and you can make those decisions. But again, if you have addiction issues and there can be digital addiction issues too, so then you might have to understand that so that you don't get yourself into a situation that might not happen for me because I don't have those addiction issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just makes me think of my own kids. Like, we have 5 different personalities running around, and uh yeah, I've heard it before, but it kind of clicked for me now once again, just to notice like how my kids react when, like, we have a 15-minute uh time span for the tablet, and like how they react to that, when it's over. And like if we lack to look at another kid's time and how one kid will look at that. So yeah, I think it's just really important to keep in mind, like some personalities are more addictive and
Yeah.
some less.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, one thing you mentioned on your website that I found really interesting is that building a strong community is key. Um, can you talk about what that looks like and why it's so important?
Yeah, I mean it's everything because this isn't something you can do in isolation, right? So I can get my house in order and have my son, be as knowledgeable as he needs to be to deal with this, but then, let's say he goes to school in middle school or even like sometimes late elementary when kids somehow have smartphones, and then you see something you shouldn't. Maybe it's pornography, maybe it's something incredibly violent or death, right? Things you can't unsee.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've prevented him from seeing it in our house, but that doesn't mean he's not going to come across it in the real world unless it is something that we are all talking about so that we all understand why that stuff, why unregulated, unfettered access to the internet for kids is such a dangerous thing. Like, for example, the gift usually from elementary to middle school in our district has been a smartphone. That's way too early for kids to have a
Mm,
smartphone. And when I talk to parents about it, 9 out of 10 have said, well, I didn't want to do it, but it was because everybody else was doing it and I didn't want my kid to be left out.
exactly.
But if
Mm,
all of you are thinking the same thing, but no one's saying it to one another, right? Like, how do you expect that to change? But if you're having conversations in a non judgmental way, right? Like, you can't judge like, again, we've discussed how personal all of this can be. But if you have the same information, right, then you're going to find like minded people. And then you can change those norms, right? So by the time that my kid is graduating into middle school, I hope that the majority of people are educated enough to understand why giving them a smartphone at that age is problematic. So it's stuff like that where it's like you can't do this in isolation. You have to have community.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it makes really good sense. Yeah, once my daughter, she at a friend's house, she saw a scene from Squid Games and came back pretty, yeah, upset. And
Yeah, which and it's not like we're saying don't let Squid Games be on Netflix. Like, no, we're just saying that like it is inappropriate content for some age ranges. So just know that. And like,
yeah,
yeah, so it's like again, it's like no one is saying, you know, don't put out like hyper violent or it's all about what is appropriate, who can take that in, because as a child, I hear this all the time about like some of the games that parents let their kids play or some of the shows and movies that they let them watch, and it's just like, like I'm not saying don't ever watch it, but maybe don't watch it as a 6-year old.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I think, like, for parents, I think a lot of us just appreciate the break, right? With
Yeah,
sometimes screens
totally.
give parents a break.
Totally. Hmm.
Um, but I think what we just really need to mix into the conversation is what you said, like teach our kids to be very media savvy, and also know what they're watching. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, to create those boundaries, create the safe path. So, like, if I'm giving my kid a phone, which, yeah, it's good to think about that a few more times rather than just do it, but to let them know how to use it. Like a lot of parents, yeah, we need to just let our kids know that the danger of pornography is always there. And
Hmm.
so if you see anything weird, come and tell me about it, right?
Yeah,
To just
exactly.
make
Like
sure.
be, yeah, like that. I mean, that's so important to know that, like, you know, your kids feel like they can talk to you about this stuff in the same way that they could feel like they could talk to you about drugs and alcohol, right? Another thing too that I would say, like, yeah, get a basic phone, right? If you really do
Mm,
need to have communication with a younger kid, get a basic phone. It's not the phone, it's the connection to the internet. It's the connection to
yeah.
all of that out there that, like, you don't know what they're going to see, and that's where it becomes problematic. But I would also say, like, yes, there are instances where you're just like, I need a break, right? And that's okay too, but also, like, allowing your kids to, like, we've stopped allowing our kids to be bored. We've stopped allowing
Yes.
ourselves to be bored, and that is very problematic because when you're constantly taking in stimulation, you're not processing it, and that does affect your long-term memory. I remember one time we were leaving my little's apartment, and we have a rule when we hang out, no phone. And so I was just like, well, why don't you just leave it here? And he clutched it to his chest, and he just shouted no. And I was like, whoa, what was that about? And he's just like, well, I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, if we're not talking? And I was like, I don't know. Like, think about what I said. Think about what you want to say. Think about another story. Like, stare at a cat that's walking by. I don't know, but we can't just fill our lives with, constant 24/7 content, right? I mean, even just like when you go to the doctor's office or you're at the DMV, like, put your phone away, be bored, let your mind wander. Like, having that is really important time for us as human beings, and we're really taking that away from ourselves. And I think that's, I don't think that's going to go well for us. I don't think it
Mm,
has been going well for us.
yeah. Yeah. I'm really grateful you mentioned that. And sometimes I wonder, like, what is our fear of, the emptiness in our minds?
Hmm. It's
I
uncomfortable.
actually, okay, yeah, because I really appreciate it as a mom, like, usually left and right, there's so much going on, so when there's a quiet moment, it's like a wonderful warm
Yeah,
shower
relax. Your brain gets to just, like, again, just like process and think and, like, daydream. Like, all of that is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. So when boredom comes up in our family, and I know my kids might be a little bit annoyed, but I'm like, "Yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean, and
Do
that's
it."
harder with 5 kids, right? Versus, like, when I have my one kid being like, "I'm bored," and I'm like, "Okay, go figure something out," right? You can go read a book, you can draw, you can do whatever you want, but I understand that it's so much more difficult. Like, I can't even imagine 5 kids telling you, "I'm bored." Like, that's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah, but let's realistically, they're not all saying at
Yeah.
once usually. That sounds scary, but
Oh,
usually
that sounds like a horror movie.
it does. But, yeah, like, I noticed, some kids, like, when they say it, often it's like they say it and it really feels like, a crave for connection, actually.
Mm,
I mean, sometimes it is kind of a hint like, "Oh, I wanna play something on some kind of device." But I notice like, "Oh, you seem alone," and, um, or lonely, and so, yeah, like,
I
"Hey,
love that.
maybe yeah, maybe you wanna play something together," like,
Yeah.
if I can.
Just being able,
Sometimes I
and
can't.
yeah, and being able to even just, like, offer it, and maybe they don't. Maybe they do, but, like, just need to just be bored and not stimulate their brain. But, like, that's really cool that, you would recognize that, and again, just ask them, right? Just communicate with them.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So healthy habits for families online. Is there like a kind of um I don't know, top 3 things that we can just keep in mind? Um yeah. I mean, you mentioned a lot already, so
Yeah, but I
um
mean, bears repeating, right? I think
yeah, please.
I would say community outperforms isolation, right? Like,
Mhm.
being able to talk about all of this stuff with your community, um, model good behavior for your
Oh, yeah.
kids because they are watching us constantly. And if we're telling them to stay off their devices and we can't get off of ours, it's very hypocritical. And there
Mm,
as an adult, there's so many other reasons that you are on a device for work, for example, but you can narrate those choices. Just say like, hey, I know that like dinner time, we don't do tech, but I'm waiting for an important email that I can't, like, it can't wait. Like it is something that I have to unfortunately handle in this moment. If you're communicating that, then that's fine, right? It's
mm,
it's again, it's that nuance. And then yeah, just like I guess mm, participate in this stuff with your kids.
mhm.
I'm not saying yeah, like have a 3-hour gaming session, but like hop in for 15 minutes. Like let them show you around. Like sit and watch, a YouTube creator that they're interested in. It just all opens up more opportunities for you to communicate and connect with your kids, which is like, I mean, that's what's so great about having them is they're fascinating. They're fascinating little
Yes,
people.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. That sounds really good and doable, right? I think
Yeah, yeah,
it's
that's a
very
thing,
doable.
right? Like we can do this stuff. It can be actionable, and it doesn't have to be as overwhelming or scary as it might seem.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing, like, the modeling, I think, is really, really important. Like, just, like, morals generally, like, School of Love is all about, like, how do we bring up our kids to have a really healthy culture around sex,
Mm-hmm.
when the world is, like, really polluted right now,
Mm-hmm.
with that culture. And like what I'm realizing more and more, and also telling other parents, is how our couple is a married couple, or our partnership is the first example that they're looking at and learning from.
Yeah.
And also how we speak about these topics. And so it's just so important to cover those topics and, talk about them.
Yeah.
And so, same thing with media habits. Um, and I saw on your website, like, you're not alone, like, you have some colleagues that sound, like, super great. I saw there's a marriage therapist
Mm-hmm.
even,
Yeah.
and I'm just wondering, because one tricky point, I think, is that in the couple, there are very different levels of understanding, like, how do I understand media use? How do I model it? And how do I wanna, yeah, show up for the kids, or how do I want to create this culture for the kids?
Yeah.
Usually I feel one parent is much more inspired about it than another. Um, I mean, I've seen that a lot. And so I'm just wondering if you have anything on that. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just communication of just like what are your musts, right? Like I am educated enough about this thing that like this is like a must for me, right? It's my line in the sand. And then what are some
Mm,
things that maybe you can loosen a little bit of control over and make some concessions? Because we're also thinking about like not just couples under the same roof, but what about parents that are divorced,
sure.
grandparents, right? Like these are, there was a woman at one of my workshops last week who was talking about how her ex is very permissive with all of this stuff. And so then when the kids go to her house, she's the villain because
Mm,
she is trying to, moderate this stuff for them, which is the right thing to do. But like they don't understand that. And so I was just telling her, it's like you can't control other people, right? You can only control what you do. So,
right.
are there opportunities for you to concede on some points so that your kids feel like you are making concessions for them, because they need to be heard? And so, like, one of the things that she was saying is just like they always watch these videos right before bedtime, which again is not a great idea to be watching, videos before you go to sleep. It's going to impact your sleep. But I was saying, like, well, maybe when you have them, can you do that one night out of the week so that there's like, again, it's not your ideal, but it's better than either banning it all and, for good reason, but then being the villain, or just being like, well, I give up. If your dad's not going to do anything about it, I guess I won't either. Right. So
Mm,
is there some concessions that you can make? Um, and then knowing that, like, no, there are some hard lines that I really need to adhere to because the evidence is overwhelmingly pointing to it being a very detrimental thing for my kid.
Yeah, I love that realistic view and
Yeah,
advice. And I also love, like, if you do that, then you could start a conversation with the kids, like, okay, so how did you feel with that one night? And
totally.
then
Totally.
compare it to, like, hey,
Yeah.
did you sleep better the night when we
Uh-huh.
didn't do that? Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
that's,
love
yeah,
it.
that's great. And maybe they'll like be like, no, it was fine. But like, I'm pretty sure you're going to notice those differences because it's not a hard
Yeah,
line to draw from, I'm staying up late and I'm watching content and it's making my brain, just active. And then you
yeah,
lie down to sleep and it's like, it's going to take you forever to get to sleep. And then you wake up the next morning and you're groggy, you're grumpy, you're not going to do as well in school or at work. And so it's like a very easy line to draw. So I
yes.
love that idea of just being like, hey, we've been doing this for a while now. Did you notice this thing? And like, that's what it's about, right? Like, I'm not here to make your life hard. My argument isn't about games. It's not about social media. It's not about devices. It's about your well being.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. And how can people get connected with you if they want to?
Yeah, if you're interested in, yeah, learning more, or again, I do family plans, visual plans. If you have a PTA, I can come talk to parents
Mm,
then, or if your school has guest speakers. If you go to my website, which is health-e-habits.org, or, hello at health-e-habits.org is a good email to reach out to.
awesome. Yeah, really cool. Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate all of this information that you shared with us. And yeah, I think it's just also uplifting for parents. It's like,
I hope
yeah,
so.
let's be realistic. It's doable,
And you
but
got this.
let's know about
Yeah.
the dangers. Yeah,
Cool.
really cool.
Thank
You got
you.
this.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Amelia. And yes, you got this.
Yes. Thanks so much, Jim.
Yeah.